On February 9th of 2004, 21-year-old UMass student Maura Murray drove from her dorm in Amherst, Massachusetts to the White Mountains of New Hampshire.
At approximately 7:27 p.m., Maura spun out her 1996 Saturn on a hairpin turn on Route 112 in North Haverhill. There has never been a credible sighting of Maura since.
Maura is 5 foot 7 inches tall. She weighs 120 pounds, and she has brown hair and hazel eyes.
If you have any information regarding Maura's disappearance, please submit it to us, the Murray family through their Facebook page, or the New Hampshire State Police Cold Case Unit.
This is Missing Maura Murray. Welcome back to the Missing Maura Murray podcast. I am Tim, here today with Lance in the Crawlspace studios in Wormtown. Lance, how are you today?
I couldn't be better, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well. And today, Lance, we talk about a disappearance, a missing persons case out of Colorado. It's from Nucla, Colorado. His name was Dale Williams. And we were introduced to this case because we are board members on the nonprofit Private Investigations for the Missing, which of course was started by Bruce Maitland, Brianna Maitland's father.
Yeah, and this is the transition of sorts that we've been talking about, using this platform, the Missing Maura Murray Show, to work in conjunction with Private Investigations for the Missing. So, as you said, this case came to us through the email, through the website, and we felt like this was a good place to start because we started some really good communication with the family. We have Tony Lawrence, who is his daughter, and Sarah Luster, who is also his daughter, and Michelle and Jennifer Amell. Michelle Kazuba and Jennifer Amell have been helping us out with this as well.
That's right. Big thanks to them. And Jennifer Amell joins us on this episode, and you may recognize Jennifer's voice if you are a longtime listener of Crawlspace, because she does the Suitcase Jane Doe series with us on Crawlspace. And in fact, we just released an episode of Suitcase Jane Doe this week. So if you're listening to Crawlspace this week, you already heard her. So here she is. She is now doing some research for us.
Right, so we got the shout-outs there, the people who this wouldn't be possible without, especially this case, Tony Lawrence, Sarah Luster, Michelle Kazuba, Jennifer Amell, and you and I, Tim, are just the conduits of information here. So we're going to do our best to put these people on the platform they deserve, and we'll start with Dale Williams, and hopefully we can get a good reaction from this.
Okay, so Dale Williams went missing from Nucla, Colorado, May 27th, 1999. He's 5'7", 170 pounds.
He has sandy brown / graying hair, green eyes. He's got facial hair, beard, and a mustache. And he's got scars under the chin, under each side of his face, along the jawline, scars on the center chin. It appears that he's grown the facial hair to cover up those scars. These scars are not in relation to his disappearance. He's got a birthmark on the left side of his jawbones, and he was last seen wearing blue jeans and a blue T-shirt.
And Dale was 42 at the time he went missing. He would be about 63 now. If you have any information on the disappearance of Dale Williams, please contact the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. It's 970-248-7500.
And rest assured, Missing Maura Murray listeners, we will be covering more Murray news as it breaks. The show is still Missing Maura Murray, but we owe it to the other people who are missing, their family members, Private Investigations for the Missing. We have developed this platform where we talk about missing people. We've talked about Maura, and we've done over 100 episodes on one particular case. So it's time to start using this tool in order to bring some sort of closure or some answers to the families who also have missing people.
Okay, thanks everybody for listening, and please check out investigationsforthemissing.org, and you can make a donation there through the nonprofit's GoFundMe page. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Missing Maura Murray podcast. We are being joined today by Jennifer Amell. Jennifer has been working on the Suitcase Jane Doe podcast, and in fact, we released an episode about that on Crawlspace this week. So she's a familiar voice. How are you, Jen?
I'm doing very well. How are you guys?
We are doing excellent. It's a little snowy here, and we want to thank you for joining us on Missing Maura Murray from the confines of your snowy research Crawlspace dwelling that is in parts unknown. So
Right.
This is where you go to do your research for us and for yourself and for justice. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us yet again.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to describe it as a hatch.
Wow, perfect.
Yeah, hatch. I was at a loss for words, but that's exactly what I was getting at.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I first listened to you guys on Missing Maura Murray, so it's a little bit like the Twilight Zone.
I love it.
Being on the show.
Well, great. Well, I'm your Rod Serling, and let's hear about Dale Williams.
Whoa, who am I? Wait, that
You're like Rod's sidekick.
I'm the guy with the thick glasses. I'm the guy who's like, I have all the time in the world to read.
So you're starting to do a little research for us, Jen, and a lot of the cases that have come in from emails to the private investigations for the missing email inbox is kind of where you're starting on this.
Yeah, that's correct. We try to prioritize family members that write in with their cases. It seems like they're still invested, even if the case is 25, 30 years old, which is what this case is today.
How did you get involved with private investigations for the missing? This is the nonprofit that Tim and I are on the board of, and it's run by Brianna Maitland's father, Bruce Maitland. It is to provide private investigators for families who have run out of resources. So we're raising funds to do that. And welcome aboard officially to the team of private investigations for the missing. How did it all start?
Thanks very much. Yeah, as we mentioned before, I did some work for you guys on Crawlspace podcast for a case called Suitcase Jane Doe. It's a cold case here in my hometown of Downingtown, Pennsylvania. And I guess we've completed about 5 episodes now. The next one due out pretty soon. It was based on your invite. I couldn't believe my luck. This is a thing I enjoyed doing. I think it's important, and you guys are doing amazing work, so I'm happy to be on board.
Well, great. Thanks a lot.
Technically, it was our invite, but it was your work on Suitcase Jane Doe where Tim and I finally saw the light, and we were like, this is the type of researcher that we need, because we have facilitators who are doubling as researchers. We have Tim and I who will try to get the word out there for these missing individuals, and you working exclusively as a researcher putting together these documents is extremely helpful. So it was partially our invite, but I think a little overdue.
Yeah, and we also have a lot of emails that have come into the private investigations for the missing email inbox, and frankly, someone's got to reply to all them. And so shout out Michelle, shout out Jillian, some other people who are helping to work with the nonprofit. And so that's kind of where this your work, Jen, starts, is sort of organizing the emails that come in, and you're going to be able to help research some of these cases for us so we can talk about them on the show.
Yeah, I think it's vitally important. Definitely shout out to Michelle. She's done a great job creating an intake plan and getting us organized. So I'm there to basically just do the research and do a little reach out to the families or the people that write in and make sure we're staying true to what the families want out of the case. Another point to hit on as well, and specifically in these missing persons cases that have gone cold for so long, we really need to get these stories out into the public so they can either do their own research and or write in with tips or memories or whatever. I mean, it all helps. It's important.
Okay, so let's discuss the disappearance of Dale Williams. Dale went missing from Nucla, Colorado on May 27th, 1999. And it says he's believed deceased and foul play is suspected. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think just because the case has gone on for so long with no sign of Dale, that they believe he is deceased. There's the other fact that his truck was dumped. They're not sure exactly when, but it was found about 6 weeks after he went missing. And they do not believe that Dale had any hand in dumping his truck. So I think that's where the foul play comes in.
Okay, so his stats here, he was 42, so this was in 99. He would be 63 now, 5'7", 170 pounds, sandy brown / graying hair, green eyes, beard, a mustache. It seems like the beard and the mustache are covering up a bunch of scars on his face. Scars are on each side of his face, his jawline, center chin. He's got a birthmark on the left side of his jawbone, and he was last seen wearing blue jeans and a blue T-shirt. And this was sourced from where, Jen?
This was sourced from the Naama site. There was an Unsolved Mysteries episode, which featured Dale, which had really good information, and the family's website on the case has all of this information as well. So these are all the vital statistics.
Okay, and the family's website is whereisdalewilliams.net. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. This one is I was going to say you know how to pick them, Jen. This one is seemingly one of those ones that should have been solved pretty quickly. I don't know if that's your opinion, but if you want to go through some of the background and everything to bring everybody up to speed on who Dale Williams is and his the circumstances of his disappearance.
So about a year before Dale's disappearance in 1999, he and his wife had some close friends. Their names are not disclosed, so we won't disclose them here either. But we'll refer to them as the ex-friend, which is the man, and the ex-wife, which is his wife.
Okay.
So Dale and his wife Diana found out that the ex-wife was being abused. I'm not sure if it was physical or verbal abuse or some combination of the two, but they decided to help the ex-wife get away from her husband, and they moved her to another state covertly. I guess they were hoping that the ex-friend wouldn't find out about the Williams involvement, but in fact he did.
So just to clarify, Dale and Diana are married, and Dale's ex-friend was her husband, and they suspected that she was being abused, so Dale and his wife covertly moved her away from the ex-friend.
Yes, that's right. And I imagine this would be quite a difficult decision to make. I mean, not to say you shouldn't help a woman in need, you always should. But Dale had grown up with this friend. They went to grade school and high school together, and they'd been friends for their adult life as well. So I imagine it was pretty difficult for Dale to, go behind his friend's back and get his wife away.
Sure. And was this ex-friend the type of person that you would describe just based on your opinion or based on your research? Would your opinion be that this ex-friend had a violent streak?
Yes, I believe so. Just on the presumption that he was abusing his wife. I mean, that's really all the evidence you need.
Okay.
Right. And so it sounds like someone broke into Dale's shop.
Yeah. So 11 months. So this is a month after they moved the ex-wife away. So 11 months before his disappearance, Dale owned this auto body shop in Nucla. And when he went to work one day, he found all these torn up pictures in front of his entryway. And there was a bunch of stray .22 caliber bullets scattered with the pictures as well. And when he pieced these pictures together, he found that they were pictures of Dale and Diana and the ex-friend and his ex-wife. He believes that these pictures were taken from inside of his shop. So somebody had to break into his shop, rip up the pictures, and deposit them on the entryway for Dale to find.
Okay, what kind of shop was this?
It's an auto body shop. So it's not necessarily mechanics, but they work on, like, the body of a car. Like if you're in a wreck or needed a windshield replaced.
Or if someone slides into your car in a snowy parking lot.
Someone's
Speaking
bitter.
from experience.
Someone's still bitter.
No.
Okay, so, and then a day later, Diana, who worked at this video store, this is back in 1999 when you would actually go to a store to rent VHS tapes. So she managed one of these stores, and when she went into work, in the drop box of the store, she found a .22 caliber revolver in there. The gun was later determined to be Dale's, which was in his auto body shop and matched the .22 caliber bullet casings that were laid out in front of his shop. So someone, we're gonna say probably it was the ex-friend, broke into the shop, stole his gun, his bullets, and these pictures, and was using these tactics to intimidate and, frankly, to terrify the Williams.
Okay, and because I love to do this, I like to recap at every point possible. In Dale's shop, when he was gone, someone broke in and scattered .22 caliber bullets and found torn up pictures of himself and Diana and of the ex-friend and the wife that they helped rescue. Found the torn up pictures of those four scattered along with the bullets, and then Diana, Dale's wife, finds the gun that matches those bullets in the drop box of the video store, which must be quite a surprise when you go to pick up the nightly drops from the videotapes, and that's determined to be the gun that Dale owned, and it matches the bullets.
Right, yeah.
So this is clearly a tactic to intimidate.
Absolutely.
Okay, and this came how long after they had covertly moved the girlfriend or the ex-wife?
This was a month after they moved the ex-wife.
Okay, 11 months before he disappeared, before Dale disappeared.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so the escalating tactics to intimidate have now started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly why there weren't more things that this ex-friend did in the intervening period of those 11 months. I mean, he did actually find out where his ex-wife was. So that he may have been intimidating Dale to get information about where his ex-wife went. And then when he subsequently found out where she was, maybe the scare tactics stopped for some reason.
Do you know how he found that out?
I don't know.
Okay. But there was an incident that occurred on the same day as Dale's disappearance that may or may not be related.
Yeah. So we've been corresponding with Dale's daughter, Toni, and she said that she found out some information fairly recently from her aunt and uncle, who are both now deceased. But apparently a person, an unidentified man, showed up at her work, and this was in a separate town. This wasn't in Nucla. This was, I think, 2 hours away.
Okay.
So someone showed up at her work looking for Toni, and she was in college at the time. She wasn't at work that day, so this guy left and he went outside to a payphone, and a coworker watched him make a call, which lasted 15 to 20 minutes, and then he left.
A 15 to 20 minute call on a payphone.
Yeah. It's quite a long call.
That is a long call. Interesting. And this was May 27th.
Yes.
Okay.
On the day of Dale's disappearance.
Okay. And about 2 hours away from where Dale lives.
Correct.
What have you been exploring as far as the reasoning here?
So I've been closely following the Reddit thread on this case, and people have really great ideas about what this could mean. I mean, potentially there was a setup. I'm not saying this was the ex-friend, because he probably would have been identified if he went to Toni's work. But if he had hired or enlisted the help of somebody else to do something to Toni, whether it was to scare her or abduct her or even to murder her, I'm not sure. But when she was not at work, the plan had to change. So that would explain this long phone call to determine a plan. And maybe from that point, they decided to go after Dale himself.
Okay.
But you don't think this is the ex-friend, or you do think this is the ex-friend?
I don't think it's the ex-friend. I think if there was any description given to Toni's aunt and uncle from the coworker, they probably would have determined it was this ex-friend. I mean, I'm not saying for absolute certainty, but I'm thinking they would have connected the dots.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying at this time of your research, if the people who had witnessed the man described him to Tony's aunt and uncle, they would have said that by now. They would have said this is the ex-friend.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, I get you.
I mean, some information can get lost, kind of like the telephone game. It's been many years since this happened.
On May 27th, 1999, the day of Dale's disappearance, according to Pastor Tom Ross and his son, they stopped by to visit Dale at his auto body shop in Nucla. Around noon, Ross said Dale received a call from someone saying they broke down 3/4 of a mile east of Bedrock, Colorado store, which is a small roadside country store. Ross considered this strange as Dale ran an auto body shop and didn't normally provide roadside assistance. And Ross said it sounded like Dale was speaking to a woman based on the tone of his voice. First, he said he would take the wrecker, and then after learning that the distressed caller needed a jump, said that he'd take the truck, white Ford pickup truck.
And at 12:15, Dale stopped at Tammy Lawrence's office. Tammy was the wife of Dale's best friend, and according to her, he was in a hurry.
Tammy had a quote on the Unsolved Mysteries show. She said, "I had a windshield that I needed repaired on a truck of ours. I thought it was strange that Dale stopped in because he didn't have to stop and tell me. He could have called me. Maybe he felt uneasy about who he was going to give a tow to. I really don't know. That was the last time I saw Dale Williams."
And you're thinking perhaps he was uneasy about the distress call and he wanted someone there like his friend to tag along because he felt a little bit, nervous about it.
Yeah, that could definitely be the case if you wanted his friend to ride along. I don't necessarily think, because the pastor who provided the statement about the phone call, he was listening in, said that Dale seemed friendly, like he was talking to maybe a woman. I don't know how you really determine that, but it didn't seem like he was nervous at all about this call. So I'm not totally sold on the fact that Dale was uneasy about the call.
Okay, but this was the last confirmed sighting of Dale, and there have been possible sightings of him subsequently. Between 12:15 and 1:30, Dale's whereabouts are unaccounted for, and this is presumably when he assisted that particular stranded motorist. Eyewitnesses placed Dale's truck back at the auto body shop in Nucla as early as 1:30 p.m. and as late as 2:30 p.m. So there's an hour window there for the eyewitnesses placing his truck back at his auto body shop. Additional eyewitnesses report seeing Dale at a country market in Naturita, which is one of the neighboring towns, between 5 and 6 p.m. And his wife, Diana, considers those witnesses to be very credible. That's interesting.
Can I jump in there for a sec?
Please.
So this report between 5 and 6 p.m., I don't think the family actually believes this is true now. There was another man's truck that looked very similar to Dale's, and they sort of believe that could have been mistaken for Dale's truck.
And Dale's truck was a white Ford pickup. That's what we were saying?
Yeah.
Sounds like a common truck.
Yeah, it does.
So then 6 weeks go by, and Dale's truck was located in July of 1999 in Uravan, Colorado. How far away from that was where he went missing?
I believe it was 30 minutes.
So this is near a swimming hole, right near San Miguel and Dolores Rivers, and only locals really know about this swimming hole.
Yeah, it seems to be really off the beaten path. The family seems to believe that it would have to be a person who is familiar with the area to even find this place. Conversely, I had a thought that there's this super remote dirt road from where the country store is, where the stranded motorist presumably was calling from. There's a dirt road connecting that country store to the site where the truck was dropped. So if you didn't know the area and you were just looking for a dirt road to drive down and a place where you could conceivably roll a vehicle into the water, you wouldn't necessarily pick a place where swimmers go and fishermen go to hang out. So maybe we're not looking for a person who's too familiar with the area. I do think that the family's pretty sold on the idea that it was a local. The guy who found the truck, his name is Levi. He's very close friends with the family now. Told him that on the day he was fishing and he found the truck, there was a man in a teal geo-tracker, which is a kind of car, that drove by them several times. And it finally stopped, and the guy got out, and he said to stop playing around there. And then he drove off again, which was a very strange thing.
How old was this Levi guy?
Pretty young. I think he was in his 20s.
Okay. And how old was the guy in the geo-tracker?
I don't know. I don't have any information on that guy.
It sounds like something that an older guy would tell like a kid, like stop playing around there. But that's just how my brain is playing it out. You said that the truck was found by a pair of fishermen, and it was in this the confluence of the two rivers, the San Miguel and the Dolores, and the swimming hole was particularly deep, I guess. So the truck was sunk, and the fisherman hooked it, like got his line hooked on the hood of the truck.
Yeah, that's right. I believe Levi said that he thought it was a refrigerator. Then I think he tried to get into the truck, like discovered it was a truck and tried to get into it and found some identifying information and knew that this was a person who was missing. So he called the police. So the truck was all the way submerged and the cab was filled with silt from the bottom of the river. It's kind of like dirt, debris, rocks, that sort of thing. And then the wheels were cranked to the hard left, indicating that the truck was deliberately driven off of that dirt road and into the river where the swimming hole was.
And I know you have weather reports here. So the windshield wipers were turned on. So this might give us a sense of timing. Can you run through the weather reports?
Yeah, I thought that might be a pretty good thing. If the wipers were on, then that means it was probably raining. And this is an area of Colorado where it doesn't really rain that often. So we have some days that it's likely that the truck was dropped. So on June 17th to June 18th, there was a light rain. And then on June 22nd, there was a light to moderate rain. So maybe we're looking at those 3 days as possible days when the truck was dumped.
Okay, so if the wipers were turned on because it was raining, it would indicate that the truck was at least kept somewhere for 3 weeks, because if they drove it after that, they would be driving it in the rain, and it was missing for 6 weeks.
But it says here May 27th that there was some very light rain in your van, right?
That's true, yeah. It was super light rain, so I'm not sure if you would have your wipers on in that case.
Yeah, but that is the day he went missing. I mean, I would say it's much more likely that the car was deposited into the watering hole sooner rather than waiting a few weeks.
I would think so too, but maybe that would explain the sighting later on at that neighboring town of the truck.
Okay, other details that you have here. The driver's side and the passenger windows were down 3/4 of the way. And according to Dale's wife, Diana, Dale always drove with his windows all the way up or all the way down. I think that's a really interesting detail that she would remember. I guess if you're with somebody for a long time, like these habits of your significant other. That's an interesting detail. So we're talking about somebody who had put the windows down in a light to moderate rain, perhaps, so that the water would come in and continue to submerge or successfully submerge the truck.
Correct, yeah. I think that was done very deliberately.
Okay, and now let's talk a little bit about the investigation. And a lot of information about the investigation is actually being withheld by police because it's an open case. But here is what we know. The Williams family put up missing person posters in the post office. The posters kept disappearing or being ripped down. Eventually, Diana asked police to set up a surveillance camera.
Which is cool that apparently they did set it up because they determined that it was Dale's ex-friend, the person that we've been talking about with the leaving the gun in the video deposit box. He ripped down the posters, but you have here he was questioned by the police, subjected to 2 polygraphs, passed both of them, and had an alibi and was ruled out as a suspect. So this is interesting. It doesn't mean that he didn't do anything, and really it's not as hard to pass polygraphs as people think if you know how to manipulate. But what are your thoughts on that?
You can never be sure on how thorough an investigation is if you don't have, the police report right in front of you. It didn't mention anything about this ex-friend being involved in some other way, either hiring someone or asking a friend to do his dirty work. So just because he had an alibi doesn't mean he isn't involved. And really, he's the only enemy of Dale's. I mean, just demonstrating what kind of person Dale was. Like, he went out of his way to help a woman in need, and his family describes him as a very community-oriented, fun-loving kind of guy. This is a man with no enemies, and this is the only person who had a motive to hurt Dale.
Right. And the police even investigated that mysterious phone call at Dale's auto shop, and they traced the number to a phone that was initially reported as stolen. But there's confusion on this. The phone was either stolen or was a burner cell phone.
Yeah, I've been unable to determine if the phone was stolen or if it was just a burner. But both of those facts sort of suggest that it's a nefarious call.
Yeah, that it might have been connected to his disappearance.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the cell service like? There's probably not a whole lot of cell service around Bedrock in 1999. So it would have to have been placed in an area that had cell service.
Correct. Yeah, I don't think the call could have come from that area where the Bedrock Country Store was. They would have had to make it from maybe Nucla or maybe another more habited town where there's some cell towers.
And you've got some thoughts on the phone call here, Jen. Tell us about those.
So let's imagine for a second that the caller had nothing to do with Dale's disappearance. So if they did in fact call because they were stranded and they needed a jump on their car, how did they place the call if there was no cell service? And how did they have the number for Dale's auto body shop? So if they weren't trying to lure Dale out for any reason, maybe they went back to this country store and used a phone book to find the number of some type of automotive shop. And you got to remember that Dale's shop was for auto body work. It wasn't necessarily to do roadside assistance at all. So, I mean, it was a strange choice to call this shop, but if in fact they did go to the store, was there a clerk at the store? Did they remember seeing a motorist stranded? Did they have a description of somebody? These would all be questions I would ask.
What was the name of Dale's auto body shop, if you know?
I don't know.
I was just thinking if it was like AAA Auto Body by Dale, it would have been like one of the first ones in the phone book for them to look at. But it is interesting that they would look up an auto body shop and not a tow company or not AAA if they needed a jump.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of playing devil's advocate here. It seems like the caller had something to do with his disappearance based on the fact that the number was untraceable.
So what does the Williams family think?
Unfortunately, I believe they've given up hope that they'll find Dale alive. They do think that he is deceased and that he was murdered.
There's a rumor about him being in a mine shaft. He was murdered and put in a mine shaft, and there's hundreds of mine shafts in the area. And I mean, I can imagine that it would be an impossible endeavor to search them all due to lack of resources. Where did that rumor come from? What's your thoughts on that?
So this became sort of a local idiom in Nucla, unfortunately. It's pretty insensitive, but like, if you're drinking at a bar or something, the phrase would be like, I'll do what I did to you to Dale Williams and throw you down a mine shaft. So I'm not exactly sure how this rumor got started. Maybe it's just the mere fact that there are tons of mine shafts in the area. And if you use a little bit of your imagination, that's probably where you would hide a body if you didn't want it to be found.
Well, let me speak for everyone listening and say hardy har har to that.
That's a hilarious idiom.
Yeah.
But wasn't there something about Dale's brother mentioned, like he started that?
No, I don't think he did. I think that was some of the locals who started that rumor. But Dick, Dale's brother sort of weighed in on this theory, and he said that if Dale is in fact in some sort of mine, that he would put the body in a vent shaft of a mine. So there's lots of like openings to let air out of the mine or into the mine.
Yeah.
And these are places that are not traversed.
Okay, so this could have been just a comment that his brother Dick had made saying, my brother's missing. People are asking him all the time, and he's like, listen, if my brother's body hasn't been found, it's probably in the vent shaft of a mine.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have been where, that could have been where his head was at, and it wasn't so much him, making himself look like he was responsible for it at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And what did the police don't believe these tips with the mine shafts, or are they just not looking into it because they don't have the resources?
I don't think they have ruled it out entirely. It's definitely a possibility that his body is in a mine shaft, but like we said before, there's hundreds of them in the area. I don't think that they believe the source of these rumors or tips have any credibility.
And what's the ex-friend doing now?
So I don't have so much information on this person because I don't even have their name, but apparently he filed a restraining order on Diana and both of her daughters. So that sort of makes the family very reticent to perpetrate any slander or like openly accuse him or anything.
God damn. Why do we keep getting into these situations, these cases where the most likely suspect, and I don't know, I'm just hearing about all of this recently. Why are all of like the most likely suspects the ones they lawyer up, they get restraining orders, and no one else does? It's either they're very, very smart or they're very, I don't know, slimy.
Probably because they have something to hide.
Probably.
I mean, if he is innocent, it's also a terrible ordeal to go through, being accused for all these years. But, like, don't be a dick.
And Jen, I heard that Dale's brother Dick spoke on Marissa Jones's podcast, The Vanished, and spoke about some promising new leads. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I actually don't have any information because it is an open investigation, and I don't think they want to, play their hand too early or anything by releasing information to the public. But based on Dick's tone, he seemed pretty excited. They have more info on new leads, and they have more people to talk to. And Dick said that this new lead would make someone very uncomfortable.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Now, what would your personal theory be? And this should be the segment of the show where we say, from the hatch, Jen's personal theory.
Okay, so I have a personal theory about this case, about maybe the sequence of events. Just trolling through like the Reddit threads and people commenting on social media and stuff, the ex-friend obviously jumps out to everyone as a potential suspect. So maybe the ex-friend put a woman up to making the distress call, and for all this woman knew, it could have been some harmless prank that the ex-friend put her up to. I believe if there is a person who made this call, even if you didn't think you were doing a bad thing at the time, it's time to come forward. Whoever placed that call needs to start talking.
Right. If she thought that she was making a prank call.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe this call wasn't made to necessarily lure Dale to the Bedrock store or close by it, but to ensure that Dale would be gone from his auto body shop for at least an hour and a half, because it was like 40 minutes to the country store and then 40 minutes back to Nucla to his auto body shop. So if this call was used to lure Dale out of his shop, maybe the ex-friend who we know broke into the shop before and stole the pictures and the gun and the bullets broke in again. And fortunately, we do know that Dale left the shop unlocked in his haste to leave and help the stranded motorist. So I don't know what the ex-friend was thinking they were doing in the shop. Maybe they wanted to, I don't know, steal something, mess up some records. It could have been far short of murder. But If Dale's truck was indeed back by the shop by 1:30 p.m., as an eyewitness has stated, he would have been gone for about 75 minutes. So if Dale did arrive back at the shop, maybe he could have surprised the ex-friend doing whatever he was doing in the shop, and it resulted in a fight and potentially Dale's murder.
Okay, was there any signs of struggle in the shop that anyone has ever noted, or was there any sort of testing that was done in the shop?
That's what I would like to know. I can't find any information that they processed the auto body shop forensically. His wife, Diana, did go back to the shop when Dale failed to turn up, and she found, like the hood of another truck he was working on, like open, and his tools were scattered about like he had just left. But there was no signs of like anything knocked over or broken or anything like that.
But the pastor, Tom Ross, had stopped by that day, right? We're talking about the same day where Tom Ross and his son stopped by Dale's auto body shop, and he was the one that reported that Dale got this call and left. So I'm assuming the pastor and his son left at the same time?
Yeah, they left when Dale left. Because they had stopped by on a friendly visit. They were like playing a game of darts.
Okay, gotcha. Game of darts. And the last credible sighting of Dale was
by the family friend.
By a family friend when he stopped by. The family friend was Tammy Lawrence. He stopped by her work, and he was her husband was Dale's best friend.
Yeah, that's right. And she needed a windshield replaced on a vehicle of hers. So Dale just stopped by saying like, hey, I'm going to fix it, but I got to do this thing. And
so I'm assuming where she was at was on the way.
Yeah.
All right. And there's an interesting note here about the dirt road heading northeast. You noted here, if Dale did make it to the Bedrock store, there's a dirt road heading northeast to where the truck was dumped. So there's no other way to get to Yerevan without backtracking to Naturita.
Yeah, this is like a highly mountainous, remote, rugged area. So there's only, there's Nukla, and if you go a bit south, maybe 15 minutes or so, you hit Nucleolita. And then if you take one route, you end up at the Bedrock store in about 35-40 minutes. And then back at Naturita, you would take an opposite route and go to Yerevan. And the only way you would get from the store to Yerevan would be along this dirt road.
I just want to pose a couple of thoughts here. His truck was missing for 6 weeks, and because of the weather report, there's a possibility that it had been kept somewhere and then dumped for 3 weeks, 3 out of those 6 weeks. I'm not sure of how populated the area is, but this would have to be someone who's keeping a vehicle in a garage or maybe under a tarp or something, or one of those like driveway tents so that no one can see this. So they had to keep the truck. Also, if this was perpetrated by the ex-friend, why did he go through such lengths to dispose of the body and the truck in different locations, and apparently the body so well because it's never been found, when he seemed so sloppy with all of his threatening tactics, with all of his intimidation tactics by ripping up the picture of them? Like, it's obviously him. So when did he become like a streetwise criminal? And where would he have dumped them or disposed of him if he didn't do it in the mine shafts? Up in the rugged terrain?
Yeah, virtually anywhere. It's really remote up there, just from like the satellite imagery.
Is it at all possible that Dale's body is still in one of those rivers, or was washed away in either the San Miguel or the Dolores rivers?
It's very possible. I don't think they really dragged the rivers. In fact, there was a little anecdote told by the man who found the truck, Levi, that he offered to the police to swim down and collect some more of the pieces of the car that had floated downstream, and the police allegedly said, no, we have enough evidence. So I don't think they even looked.
What kind of person was Dale? Was he an outdoorsy guy?
Yeah, very much so.
I'm looking at his pictures here on the website and on the document that you have, and he's actually outdoors and looks like he is ready to like go chop some trees down.
Yeah, he looks like a rugged dude.
He seems like a capable guy, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think just anyone could take him out.
Now, were there any? You said that there was very little interaction or very little evidence of intimidation by the ex-friend towards Dale or Dale's family after the gun was found. So there's months, right, go by before he's missing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, at least they didn't report anything else.
Okay.
Or didn't piece together any other. I mean, his intimidation tactic with the gun and the photos was like pretty in your face, right? So I don't think this guy is super subtle.
Yeah, and then it's just so peculiar that so much time went by. If it was him who had something to do with it, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So think about that. Like, did he immediately do something to Dale, dump the body, and then kept the truck for 6 weeks? Or was he holding Dale against his will for a period of time and then did something to him? Does anyone ever entertain the theory that Dale is still alive?
It's always a possibility in missing persons cases, but all the things that you would look for as activity, I mean, his social security hasn't been used for anything. No credit cards have been used or opened, that sort of thing. There was a sighting a few years ago by a person in California, I think it was, that they saw a homeless man that looked very much like Dale, and they did actually get in contact with the Williams family, but it was later determined to not be Dale.
How many kids did Dale have?
He had 2 daughters.
2 daughters. And both of them were moved out of the house at that time?
The older one, Tony, was away at college, and the younger one was living at home, and she was in high school.
Now, Jen, in your research with this, you sourced from multiple outlets. Do you want to just give some quick shout-outs to your sources?
Yeah, I started with the Unsolved Mysteries website, who had like pretty great bullet information there. I also looked at a few articles on the case on its 20th year anniversary of his missing date. And then, like I mentioned before, Reddit is a fantastic source because Tony, Dale's daughter, had opened this thread and sort of opened it up to the public to speculate, and she has been really on the ball with answering questions and interacting with the public.
That's great.
Yeah, which only serves to say that how dedicated she is to finding her father and getting some answers.
If you have any information on Dale Williams' disappearance, please call 970-248-7500.